There is something strangely misleading about the way we imagine intelligence. Most people still picture a highly intelligent person as someone visibly impressive, someone quick with answers, someone constantly talking, someone who dominates conversations, solves problems out loud, and makes their intelligence obvious the moment they enter a room. But real life rarely works like that. In fact, some of the most intelligent people you will ever meet do not look impressive at first. They may look quiet, distracted, distant, overly reflective, socially unusual, or even misunderstood. What others call awkwardness, overthinking, or emotional distance can sometimes be something else entirely, a mind processing reality at a deeper level than most people realize. And that is where psychology becomes so fascinating, because intelligence is not just about memory, grades, or how much information someone can repeat. At its core, intelligence is often revealed in patterns, in habits, in the small ways a person responds to complexity, uncertainty, and the world around them. Some of these habits are easy to miss, some are even misjudged. And a few of them are often mistaken for weaknesses when they may actually be signs of a very active, highly analytical mind. So in this video, we are not looking at the stereotypical signs of intelligence. We are looking at the subtle ones, the quiet ones, the ones people often overlook. And the first one is something many intelligent people are judged for far too quickly. They spend a lot of time alone. Now, that does not automatically mean every solitary person is highly intelligent. But people with deeper cognitive processing often feel a genuine need for solitude, not because they hate people, not because they are cold, but because their mind needs space. Space to reflect, connect ideas, replay conversations, question assumptions, and mentally explore things that other people may move past in seconds. For them, silence is not empty. Silence is productive. A crowded social life may energize some people, but for a highly analytical mind, too much stimulation can feel mentally expensive. Solitude becomes a kind of recovery room for thought. It is where scattered impressions become organized meaning. And this is where many people get it wrong. They interpret silence as social weakness. They interpret distance as disinterest. They interpret a need for privacy as emotional detachment. But sometimes the person who leaves the party early is not disconnected from life. They are just more connected to their inner world than most. The second habit is constant curiosity. Highly intelligent people often cannot leave things alone mentally. They question what others accept. They notice what others ignore. Even in ordinary situations, their mind keeps probing. Why did that person react like that? Why do people follow routines they never question? Why does this system work so inefficiently? Why do I feel something is off here even when everything looks normal? This kind of curiosity is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it does not look like someone asking endless questions out loud. Sometimes it looks like quiet observation. A person listening closely, watching patterns, connecting dots in their head without announcing it. That is one of the reasons intelligent people can seem mentally elsewhere. Their attention is often split between what is happening and what it might mean. They are not just looking at events, they are looking through them. The third habit is talking to themselves. And yes, to many people, this sounds odd, but self-directed speech can actually be a sign of active internal organization. When someone quietly speaks their thoughts, repeats instructions, or narrates a process, they may be helping their brain structure attention, clarify decisions, and strengthen working memory. In other words, what looks unusual from the outside may simply be a mind using language as a tool for clarity. Some people think out loud because their ideas move quickly. Others do it because hearing their own thoughts helps them test logic, reduce confusion, or focus more effectively. So the next time you see someone softly saying, "Wait, let me think," or "No, that does not make sense," remember this confusion is not always what you are seeing. Sometimes you are watching cognition in motion. The fourth habit is being surprisingly comfortable saying, "I do not know." This is one of the clearest and most overlooked signs of intelligence. Less reflective people often rush to certainty. They speak with confidence even when their understanding is shallow. But genuinely intelligent people tend to be more aware of how much they do not know. And that awareness changes the way they speak. Instead of forcing conclusions, das der open. Instead of pretending mastery, they recognize complexity. Instead of protecting their ego, they protect accuracy. That is why the smartest person in the room is not always the one speaking most decisively. Sometimes it is the one pausing longest before answering. Because intelligence is not just the ability to produce answers. It is the humility to recognize when an answer is incomplete. The fifth habit is overthinking things that seem small to everyone else, a short message, a weird tone in someone's voice, a decision that others would make in 10 seconds, a conversation from 2 days ago. For a highly analytical mind, very little stays simple for long. This is one of the hidden costs of intelligence. The same mind that can detect subtle patterns, imagine possibilities, and solve complex problems can also become trapped in loops of overanalysis. It can replay situations from multiple angles. It can simulate outcomes that never happen. It can search for meaning in details most people forget immediately. And because of that, intelligent people are not always experienced by others as brilliant. Sometimes they are experienced as hesitant, as intense, as mentally busy, as the person who takes too long to respond because their mind is exploring 6 interpretations instead of 1. But what looks like slowness is sometimes depth. What looks like indecision is sometimes the burden of seeing too many variables at once. And now we arrive at a point where many people begin to realize something important. Some of the habits we criticize most quickly may not come from weakness at all. The person who needs space may be processing deeply. The person who talks to themselves may be organizing thought. The person who says, "I do not know," may be the most intellectually honest one there. The person who overthinks may not be broken. They may simply be carrying a mind that does not know how to stop looking beneath the surface. And that is only the beginning, because the next signs are even more revealing. Some of them explain why highly intelligent people often seem emotionally different, socially harder to read, and quietly drawn to meanings most people never stop to examine. If this is already making you rethink what intelligence really looks like, subscribe to the channel and stay with me for the second half, because the next habits reveal why some of the brightest minds are also the most misunderstood. By this point, one thing should already be clear. High intelligence does not always make a person look polished, socially effortless, or obviously exceptional. In many cases it does the opposite. It makes them harder to read, harder to categorize, and sometimes harder to understand. Because a highly intelligent mind is not just collecting information. It is constantly reworking reality. And that becomes even clearer in the next habit, a strong sense of humor. This is often underestimated, but humor is deeply cognitive. To understand humor, the brain has to recognize patterns, notice violations of expectation, detect hidden meaning, and connect ideas that do not usually belong together. That is why some of the quickest minds are also the quickest to make unexpected observations. Not all intelligent people are comedians, but many of them have a sharp, layered, or unusually observant sense of humor. They catch irony fast. They notice contradictions. They can turn tension into wit in seconds, and often humor becomes more than entertainment. It becomes a sign of mental agility, sometimes even a shield. Because people who think deeply also feel the strange absurdity of life more intensely, they notice how irrational people can be, how inconsistent systems are, how often reality itself seems full of contradictions. Humor becomes a way to process that, a way to survive complexity without being crushed by it. The seventh habit is changing their mind when presented with new evidence. This may sound simple, but it is incredibly rare. Many people attach their identity to their opinions. Once they publicly believe something, they defend it emotionally, even when reality pushes back. But highly intelligent people are often more willing to revise their conclusions because they see beliefs as models, not as permanent extensions of the self. That requires a kind of intellectual flexibility that is easy to admire in theory and surprisingly hard to practice in real life. Changing your mind can look like weakness to insecure people, but often it is a sign of strength. It means truth matters more to you than pride. It means you are not trying to win at all costs. It means your mind is still alive enough to update itself. And that is one of the deepest differences between intelligence and ego. Ego protects position. Intelligence protects perception. The eighth habit is being mentally active late at night. There is something about nighttime that seems to wake certain minds up even more. When the world gets quieter, the mental noise becomes easier to hear. Thoughts deepen, questions sharpen, memories return, ideas connect. For many highly intelligent people, night is not just a time of rest, it is a time of expansion. That does not mean every night owl is a genius, of course. But many people with highly active minds report that their clearest thinking happens when distractions fall away. In the dark, their thoughts finally have room to stretch. And this can create a strange tension in life. Because society rewards visible productivity, early schedules, and externally structured energy, but some minds operate in a more internal rhythm. Their most profound thoughts arrive when everyone else has gone quiet. That can make them seem lazy, inconsistent, or unusual, when in reality, their brain simply comes alive in different conditions. The ninth habit is observing more than speaking. This is one of the most easily misunderstood habits of all. In fast-paced social settings, the loudest person often appears the most confident, the most dominant, even the most capable. But intelligence does not always rush to fill silence. In many cases, it studies the room. It notices tone, rhythm, contradiction, insecurity, hidden motives. It picks up on what people say, but also on what they avoid saying. And that kind of observation can make a person look quiet when they are actually highly engaged. They are not absent. They are collecting data. Some people enter a conversation to perform. Others enter to understand. Highly intelligent people are often doing the second. That is why their responses can feel unusually precise when they finally speak. While others were busy reacting, they were busy reading. And finally, the 10th habit, a constant search for meaning. This may be the deepest habit of all. Many highly intelligent people are not satisfied with surface explanations. They do not just want to know what happened, they want to know why. They do not just notice behavior, they want to understand motive. They do not just live events, they mentally examine them. Why do people sabotage what they say they want? Why do relationships repeat the same patterns? Why do so many people live according to scripts they never consciously chose? Why do I keep thinking this way? Why does meaning feel so necessary to human life? This kind of internal questioning can make intelligent people seem intense, sometimes even restless. Because once the mind becomes aware of complexity, it is hard to go back to shallow interpretations. You begin to notice layers everywhere, in language, in emotion, in conflict, in identity, in yourself, and that awareness can be both beautiful and exhausting. Because intelligence is not just a gift for solving problems. Sometimes it is a burden of seeing too much, too many possibilities, too many contradictions, too many hidden causes beneath visible behavior. That is why highly intelligent people are not always the happiest, the most socially fluid, or the easiest to understand. A deep mind can be a powerful instrument, but it can also be a heavy one to carry. And maybe that is the part people rarely talk about. Intelligence is not always loud. It is not always charming. It is not always polished. Sometimes it is lonely. Sometimes it is restless. Sometimes it is a person staring out the window, replaying one sentence for an hour because they heard more in it than everyone else did. Sometimes it is a person laughing at something nobody else noticed. Sometimes it is a person sitting quietly in a room full of noise, saying almost nothing, while understanding more than they reveal. So perhaps the real sign of intelligence is not how impressive someone seems on the surface. Perhaps it is how deeply they engage with reality beneath the surface. How willing they are to question, how able they are to update. How carefully they observe. How honestly they admit uncertainty. How persistently they search for meaning in a world that often rewards speed over depth. And maybe that is why intelligent people are so often misunderstood. Because depth rarely announces itself. It simply watches, reflects, questions, and keeps going. If you enjoyed this deeper look into the psychology of intelligence, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling me which of these habits surprised you most. And stay close for the next video because human behavior always reveals more than it first appears.